for one and one for all. Today on Fortitude through Stoicism, and this is my 365-day journey of implementing the ancient philosophy of Stoicism into the life of this modern masculine man. All for one and one for all. No, not the Three Musketeers. Marcus Aurelius, that which isn't good for the hive isn't good for the bee. So, what I found really interesting here is because, guys, I think I told you, I started going down a deep dive of this lecturer, Jonathan B. Stumbled across him because he was talking about Stoicism as a coping mechanism. I'm like, wait a minute. And someone said that the ultimate goal was happiness, or eudaimonia, which I'm pronouncing incorrectly. But eudaimonia. Now, for me, I always use Stoicism as a form of acceptance, which again, I guess you could say is a form of coping. So I've gone down this lane, but what I stumbled upon in one of his lectures was he was talking about cosmopolitanism. So here's what Marcus Aurelius is saying, and again, this kind of comes from Cato the Younger. Inherent in the Stoic concept of Sympatheia is the notion of interconnected cosmos in which everything in the universe is part of a larger whole. Now, we all share the same energy. It's, protons, neutrons, electrons, same elements throughout the world that we know of, or universe. So Marcus Aurelius was one of the first writers to articulate the notion of cosmopolitanism. Cosmopolitanism, which is saying that he was a citizen of the world and not just Rome. So this is the idea that you're a bee in the hive is a reminder of this perspective. Marcus even states a reverse idea in Meditations, just so he doesn't forget, in which doesn't harm the community can't harm the individual. Just because something is bad for you doesn't mean it's bad for everyone. Just because something is good for you definitely doesn't mean that it's good for everyone. Whips and chains, great for me, not everyone, right? Think of hedge fund managers who make a big bet short against the economy that goes against them. They're basically essentially rooting for everyone else to lose in order for them to win. So, conversely, good and wise actions by the whole are what's good for the individual. So, I'm going to pause and reflect, of course. Sometimes when you're on the road. So, I am very much an individualist. What does that mean, Shawn? I believe that I have an individual responsibility to the outcome of my life, to my actions. And yes, this is why I use core values as a guiding mechanism for my life. Some people use religion, some people use philosophies, some people use the rule of law. I do not believe what is good for everyone else is good for me. Matter of fact, I am completely convinced that is the opposite. But I can also say something that is bad for the greater whole, bad environment, natural disasters. It's not good for me. So what does any of this mean, right? What does any of this mean? Well, how can we have an effect on the greater whole? And so this is what Stoics is like, and this is how I see the world. Yes, I'll be walking along, I'll see something on the ground, I'll pick it up, I'll throw it away. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. I don't know. I don't know why in my head tells me a lot of times to do certain things, but there's some kind of mechanism that says, hey, that's not the way it's supposed to be. That's not right. Someone else dropped the ball. So I remember, I got a lot of mama says. Mama said, if something isn't done right, Shawn, be the one to do it. And if it isn't done right the first time, do it again until you get it right. So that's my driving principle as my individual responsibility. Now, my individual responsibility is primarily to myself and not self-serving, but to ensure that I'm living in line with virtue. But if I'm in alignment with virtue on the individual level, then the hive is taken care of. We have it backwards today. We believe that the collective takes care of the individual, right? With massive government programs, cradle to grave, law for pretty much everything, and even how you can cross the street or talk to people, really, right? There's rules and laws for everything. But just because those are the rules for the hive, it doesn't mean that it's actually good, because it doesn't mean that people follow those, or it doesn't mean that people subscribe to the social order, or it doesn't even believe that people have the same concept of what's good for the hive. That's a big thing when you look at politics, right? Some people think one thing, some people think another thing. So that's why it's too confusing. It's too much. Right? And that's why we bring it down to the lowest level. And again, this is the difference between the Marine Corps and the Army. I noticed, because I was in both. The Army is very top down. The Marine Corps likes to solve problems at the lowest level, decentralized command. And that's really what I believe in. Solving problems at the lowest level. Because if you solve them at the lowest level, they don't become big problems. Okay? What do you mean, Shawn? Well, if people actually ate healthy, whole foods, avoided processed foods, avoided overeating, all these bad things, right? If people actually did that, we wouldn't have the obesity epidemic that we have in the nation. We wouldn't have the health crisis that we have in this country if people took individual responsibility. So they're trying to solve it on this global scale, right? Oh, they put in all these food pyramids, tell people what to do, all this other shit. But does it really solve the problem? No, it creates more problems. So when we're talking about the state, the collective, the society, the hive versus the individual, this is very much Plato and Aristotle. Plato talking about theory, Aristotle talking about observation, experience. We know, we see the signs. Don't feed the wild animals. They become dependent on it. And we as a people have began to feed the wild animals that are the individuals running around the hive, and they become dependent on it. It's simple foolishness. So no, I don't necessarily subscribe to the notion that what is good for the hive is good for the individual, but I can certainly tell you that if we focus on individual responsibility and individual virtue, which is what Stoicism teaches us, the rest takes care of itself. Remember, Stoicism and other philosophies predated Christianity, and I believe that during this time, again, 2,000 to 2,500 years ago, people are just trying to find the meaning of life. Not only the meaning of life, maybe the purpose. And in addition to the purpose, the best way to live that life. So for 2,500 years, we've still been trying to figure it out. I don't know if we have the exact answer just yet, but what I can tell you is when you focus on the masses, is when you see all the asses. That's the problem. It really is. Solutions need to happen at the individual level. This is my responsibility. And this is why I try and cause that ripple effect so that others can see the same light. So I know no great stories say nothing really truly exciting. But I want you just to think today, take a moment though to think about individual responsibility. Really, because when you hear people, taxes, government spending, all these other things, you realize that really most people are out against the collective, right? Screw the government. The government really is just a collection of all of us, right? It's supposed to represent us. So really, by people taking advantage of the country or the government, they're taking advantage of each individual within it. There's a better way, there's a better world, and that is definitely why I'm going down this Stoic journey. And guys, again, if you could do me a favor, if there was anything in here that you learned, you got a golden nugget from, please go ahead and hit that like button just so I can gauge whether I'm on track with delivering something that you're gaining value from. And again, selfishly, this is for me, but if I can ripple that tide and we can all grow and learn, that's really the objective. So guys, love you, but for me, I'm out of here.